Good morning, Commissioner Meyer. Can you hear us here in the room?
I can hear you. How am I coming through?
Yes, we can hear you as well. Thanks
Good.
for joining.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'll call the meeting of the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District Commission to order on Thursday, January 30th. Let's see here. We have welcome to all of our guests that are virtual or in the room. So right now we have Commissioners Paltz, Freeze, Murphy, and Havel in the room. And virtually we have Commissioners Meyer and Bookland. And Commissioner Rummel's just got on. See her too. Commissioner Lytle and Commissioner Clark at this point are absent. Commissioner Clark may join. He was maybe virtually, that is. Okay. So, Cassie, would you like to go through the virtual meeting guidance, please?
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public, and staff. To help us have a smooth meeting, I'm going to review just a few decorum rules for all. While the Commission and staff are in person, we are still offering a Zoom option so members of the public can attend. If you are attending virtually and would like to speak, you can do so during appearances by the public. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube, and the public chat has been disabled, but you can still message the host if need be. Finally, Commissioners, please use your microphones while speaking and make sure your voice is directed towards the mic. When you're not speaking, please ensure your mic is off so others can utilize the mics. As a reminder, only 3 of the table mics can be live at a time. Also, please state your name before speaking for those who may be joining us via Zoom. Those are the decorum rules of the District Commission. Thank you for following them, and let's have a great meeting.
Okay, thank you, Cassie. Any announcements? Bill or Eric? Shaking heads no. Okay. So Chad Peterson will introduce Jamie Iramia. I got your name right? Okay.
Okay, good morning. My name is Chad Peterson. I am the Facilities Maintenance Supervisor here at the district. I would like to introduce Jamie Iramia as our new Facilities Maintenance Worker. Jamie lives in Madison on the Sun Prairie border with his wife and daughter. In his free time, Jamie enjoys watching the Philadelphia Eagles, woodworking, fishing, and any activity or any extra time with his family. Jamie comes to us with a background in carpentry and concrete construction, and more recently working with low voltage communication equipment. Jamie has worked around the country building Culver's restaurants, installing communication systems. In Jamie's younger years, he worked at the Water Reclamation District in Bloomington, Normal, Illinois, where he really enjoyed the work he was doing and being hands-on on something that was out of the ordinary. Jamie looks forward to learning and working in a process that a person on the street would really never know existed. So please welcome Jamie to the district.
Okay. Welcome, Jamie. And good luck to the Eagles. Okay. Yeah. Given all the stuff with the referees and the Chiefs, I'm not sure Taylor Swift's got it all planned out. Okay, any appearances by the public? I don't see any, so we'll move on to the consent calendar where we have the approval of the minutes of the 16th of January, the approval of the cash statement operating. We have two sewer extension plans, one in McFarland and one in Windsor. And then review of bids and award a contract tour building refresh project. So when we had our meeting, just a little bit before we get a motion or questions, so I asked Bill how many tours. And last year they did 75 tours, totaling 1,500 people. The largest group was 80, so that works out to 20 persons per group, 75 tours. So I remember my first time touring back in the 90s when I first got appointed and looking at the different stuff in that building, so it's refreshed. Okay, do we have any questions on any of the items? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'd move approval of the consent calendar. Murphy.
Motion by Commissioner Murphy, second.
This is Commissioner Freeze, second.
Motion by Commissioner Murphy, second by Commissioner Freeze to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay. That will take us to item 4A, the approval of a policy for per diem commissioners. Bill, you want to kind of walk through?
I would love to. Bill Walker, Deputy Executive Director. The topic is per diems. The reason we are here is, we'll get to that. I'm going to do four things here in this presentation. Give you a little bit of background on the audience, everyone, a little background on what per diems are. Talk about what the issue is that brings us here. We have two options for addressing some of the issues, and then sit back and let you folks to decide. And as I'll mention again, we don't have a recommendation. Our recommendation is fix the issues. We don't care which way you choose to do it, or some blend of them. Per diems are a statutory matter, which is relevant here, Chapter 200. I'm going to read this to you. A per diem compensation may be paid to commissioners in an amount the commission specifies by resolution. Any change in the per diem amount after its initial establishment applies only to subsequently appointed or reappointed commissioners, and there's some other words that don't matter. The commission has a per diem policy and has had one since at least 2011, when the statute changed. And you updated that in May to do two things. First was to raise the per diem. It had been $50 since at least 2011. raise it to $125 for non-officers, $140 for officers. That distinction was added in May. And there's no problem with that. That's great. You also added an automatic annual increase, which I'm also going to read to you. Per diem under this section shall increase for all commissioners by 3% annually. The increase shall become effective every January 1st. So when it came time this year to apply that, we discovered that there were some questions that had not been answered. And the main point here is, even though some of these questions are small, not all of them are, we don't want to decide any of them, because commissioners should decide what their per diems are. Here's the first question. 3% of what? I assume that you all assumed that 3% meant of the previous year. But you did not say that, and that is not the only way to read that sentence. Harder question. How does that 3% interact with officer, non-officer role changes? So, for instance, someone is an officer, they have to hire per diem, they're an officer for a while, per diems keep rising. In the middle of a year, they become a non-officer. What do they drop back down to? Policy does not answer that question. One that relates to the reappointment part of the statute. 3% each year, that is, are we to interpret this as every single commissioner gets a 3% adjustment every year, or are we to interpret it as you must wait until you're reappointed and we sort of track 3%, 3%, 3%? I think I know what you intended, but you didn't say. We ran into a bonus question when we ran this past legal. What if an appointment is delayed? So someone is going to be reappointed, they're entitled to the higher rate, but it takes, say, the city of Madison months to get around to doing it. Do we pay back pay? Vanessa pointed out this is an important issue. Policy doesn't answer that. So we have two options for you, as I said. There's some other issues in the car. It doesn't really matter what all the issues are. It matters that they exist. Both options are written to have 125 and 140 for non-officers and officers in 2025. Again, if you were sitting in May, you'll have to wait. You're at 50. Both of them explicitly prohibit back pay on the advice of counsel, because you haven't been reappointed yet. Option one deals with the other issues by getting rid of the automaticness, but still having a sort of periodic update process. Not less than every 5 years, staff take a look at some labor market analysis. It's written broadly, but we have in mind sort of look at what we use for district staff to recommend per diem changes in consultation with the president, which the commission then approves. And the obvious advantages of that are that's 100% crystal clear, compliant with the statute. The commission is taking an action every single time, and you still get some sort of periodic alignment. The other option is to keep the automatic, but put a lot more words in it so it's clearer. And the way this is written is you retain an officer, non-officer rate. You should think of it as if those rates are sort of sitting out there in space independent of any people. And every single year on January 1st, starting in 2026, each of those types is increased by 3% of the prior year and is rounded to the nearest dollar. You didn't think about rounding, did you? And any commissioner, whichever role they're in, they receive the per diem for that role. This, of course, applies to all commissioners except those who are sitting in May. And the advantage here is the one I think you were after in the first draft, which is no action is required. This is automatic regular increases. And, of course, you always have the option to come back and have another session like this. As I said, we are indifferent between these two options or between any other option that meets these things. We have a resolution that's written generally, and that's all I have to say. Please pick one.
Okay, so it's not really important to me because I'm in the $50 range. 4 years. So, Dan?
I don't think it should be per person. I think it's like I was saying on the second one, it should be
title or commissioner spot, so everybody has the same, gets paid the same. It doesn't matter if you started in May of 2020 or 1991 or something. It should be just whatever the rate is, what is the rate is. Then I really don't understand how you're getting $50 a year. I mean, statute's kind of confusing there. I think it should be set up, you fall from secretary to a commissioner, your rate goes to whatever the commissioner is. If you go the other way around, it goes to whatever it is. And then the 3%, the way if you want to do it every year in December, or if you just want to make it automatic, I think it'd be easy. But I think you got to make it simple too, because all of a sudden, okay, so if Greg doesn't get reappointed by the city, he's not a commissioner then, or is he still going on until a new person takes his place? I mean, how does that work? I don't know.
They normally continue until a new person is appointed, but that's where the part I think that Bill was explaining. So, say Greg, they put an appointment. Greg's term is up in November. I just say I don't know when it is, but say November. Madison doesn't appoint until February. The new person coming, Greg would serve until February, but I don't know if he might get the raise. No, he wouldn't get the raise because his term is expired, and the new person wouldn't get the raise until they would start in February with the raise, but they wouldn't get back pay to November.
But that way, if you put it as the spot, the raise would just automatically go back. But I mean, it's going to be a headache for these people to pay us.
Yeah.
Okay, did you get appointed when and how, and is new, old, whatever? I mean, it should be this spot, $125 for January through December of 25. Then 26, either 125 or 125 plus 3% or whatever. It should be just the spot, not if you're appointed or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not Greg.
Yeah,
It's
right.
Greg's chair.
And as we've written it, that was our intent, and we think we've achieved that goal.
The president should be 40 right now.
But I can't because I was reappointed in September of 23, and so I have to wait. So this position, the president, well, me, who, you know, I'm the president for the next year, but I will still be at, I don't even know if I'm eligible for the 3%. No, because so I'm at 50 until the end of my, yeah.
I have a question right on that, if I can.
State statute says you can't be increased by your own action. So,
If I may, this is Commissioner Meyer. I'm curious why Tom's commission elevation to the role of president and officer role in January of this year doesn't move him out of that general commissioner pay grade, if we will, to the officer pay grade. Isn't that one of the trigger points in the way things are currently written that would change someone's rate?
This is Vanessa Wishart. So the issue is that it's not, the way the state statute's written is it's not a change to a officer position, it's just appointment or reappointment. Those are the only triggers for increasing the per diem based on what the commission decides the new per diem would be. So I understand the kind of confusion and concerns about the statute, but that's the only trigger point we have for applying the new per diem is appointment or reappointment.
So then you would almost have to put the 3% automatically to go in effect, otherwise never raise your pay next year, correct?
The way that the option one is set up is that it would take additional commission action to raise the per diem. So it would be a policy in which staff would be looking at raising the reason that this issue came up in the first place is because obviously the commission was fairly far behind on what the per diem should be. Originally, the previous versions of the statute had a set per diem of $50 back to pre-2011, I think. And the commission just, once that got pulled out of the statute and the commission was allowed to set the per diem, we just never caught up with that and took action to set it. So I think either option we have here, at least puts in place either an automatic escalator or a policy by which the commission will be looking at this on a more regular basis. I will say, I know there's no staff recommendation here. From a legal perspective, I will say option one is cleaner because there's just one set amount and it changes at when the commission takes action the next time. The option of including the automatic escalator, you know, we feel comfortable with the legal basis for doing that. That's the amount that you're setting, and it increases, as Bill said, you know, on reappointment. But it's just a little bit fuzzier than the option of having a set amount, and then the commission decides on a new amount, you know, based on policy every 5 years or so.
But that the rate goes from 125 to 32 or whatever the number is. Half people, or 3 people will get the raise and the rest won't.
That's correct.
Right, so the amount, yeah, and that's where it's a little bit fuzzy, right? The amount we're setting is the dollar value plus a 3% escalator. And so that should apply to commissioners every year, but that's where it's just, it's a little bit legally fuzzy on that front.
It doesn't apply to commissioners appointed before May of, that were in their terms before May of 24.
Correct, because, right, exactly.
Because that increase can't take effect.
Yes,
so
because that's when the increase was approved.
So
yeah.
3 of the commissioners, I think, right, were reappointed in 24. They're the only ones eligible for the 3% increase or the increase in the rate.
Correct.
And so, and then what happens that if you wait, if under option 1 was the 5 years, if you wait if you do it at 5 years, which may be I agree is the cleanest, but then you still have that problem that when you approve the new rate structure, that following November, if you say do it in May, that following November, those 3 would get the new rate. Everybody else has to wait until their reappointment. So.
Right, there's no.
The $50 rate that I currently receive, and that most of the commissioners do, that was the same rate I was paid when I joined the commission in 1992.
Right, and that's a good clarification that under either of these options, there just isn't a way to equalize all of the commissioner per diems in any given time because we're on a different reappointment schedule.
Well, if you set it up that the pay isn't off of percentage or something, but every year, so 25 is this, 26 is this, you set it up to be that rate for the next 5 years in policy, and then you're not, I mean, we're not voting on our own increases. So it's 125, 128, 132, whatever it is. You just set it up to be those for the next 5 or 10 years, whatever you want in a policy, and that's what the rates are. That make you wait for the, I mean, some people are going to wait at least 2 more years, depending on what's appointed.
Yes, and you could, right, instead of a 3% escalator, you could have set amounts that it increases, but you still will have, those still won't apply for some, you'll still be off, some commissioners will still be offset based on a reappointment schedule. No, because of because the trigger point is reappointment. So anyone who was, for anyone who was appointed before May of this year, they will have to wait for reappointment to get any of these increases.
Like I was appointed over, I get a raise.
Yes, because it would be based on the May per diem rate.
So he was appointed in October, his raise, but his salary, his rate is the 125, right? But his increase will be, will
Be appointed or still?
well, that's a good question because when was because the 3% increase was in the original policy, was that to take place annually? January 1st, right? So because the policy was approved before Dan was appointed, Dan would get a 3% increase if we kept the 3% increase.
Only Patrick and I potentially will get raises Nobody else would.
And Brad. And was there anybody else? Because you were refilling positions. No, there were positions that went vacant by.
Could I chime in with a clarifier?
So,
The
Commissioner Meyer.
the May 24th date is the operative date for the current policy, but if we were to adopt a new policy today or next month, it resets a new date, right? Where after that date. Vanessa, am I right about that?
I don't necessarily think so, because this is just an update, a clarification of the policy that was set in May.
Okay, thank you.
Amanda, I have a question. This is Commissioner Bookland. I'm just wondering, since it's a 3% annually set every year, I'm just curious as to why it would have to wait for a reappointment, since it's a standard increase and we aren't voting on it or anything like that. It's just a set time.
So the way that it's written is that the 3% would apply every year. It just wouldn't apply to commissioners who haven't been reappointed at the time it took effect. So the commissioners that were reappointed prior to May of 2024 would not get that increase, because the new policy didn't take effect until after they were reappointed. But for those who were reappointed after May, it would take effect annually.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just curious as to why that would be. Wouldn't it be just cleaner just to have it a 3% every year for all the commissioners, since we aren't re-voting on it and re-applying it?
Yes, I certainly understand the question. The issue is that the statute precludes an increase in per diem to take effect until a commissioner is reappointed. That's what the statute provides for.
Okay, thank you.
So if we retain the 3%, once we get through all the reappointments, then everybody's just continuing with the 3%, because it was voted on in 24.
Correct.
And regardless of who comes in, their new pay level would be at whatever, 125 or 140 plus the 3%, whatever. But it's not multiplied. So, for example, my seat, whoever takes this seat in 2 years would only get the 125, or say it's, we'll just use 125 plus 3%. It wouldn't get 125 plus 3% or 3% per 3%. Just the 120. So everybody's going to be at a different rate, because it doesn't compound back, does it? First, the 3% compound back?
This Bill Walker again. Let me try to answer that and make sure I understand the question. So what I'm going to do is re-describe how the automatic would work. We would have, you could picture, you've got a piece of paper somewhere that has officer written on it and non-officer written on it, 125, 140, and every year we raise those by 3% of the prior year. And that paper is just sitting off to the side. And when a commissioner is appointed, it would not be an officer yet, we look at that paper and we look at it and ask, what's the current rate for a non-officer? And that's what they get. So both of those, rates are sort of growing every single year.
So the rates would grow. So whoever takes my seat in 2 years would have, say they're not an officer, would have the 125 plus 3% plus 3% plus 3%.
And the only asterisk on that is if you were sitting in May, when this whole regime changed, you have to stay at 50 until there's a reappointment event. But after that point, as you said, everyone is sort of in the same
it does
pace.
Compound then. Everybody understand? Greg?
This is Commissioner Freeze. I'll just say what Bill and you just described is what I thought I was doing. Yes. So I did not think that I was asking you to track Dan. I thought we were tracking a position, right? Whoever happens to be in Dan's chair, which is what you guys have just described. The idea that we would track a person and, wow, no. So, so what you described in option 2, the way you just, both of you, all three of you actually just described it, works for me.
Okay, anybody have any, Brad?
Yeah, I originally thought I liked option 1, but after the discussion, I'm heavily toward option 2. And that's just the 3% annual increase rather than looking at this every 5 years. And we can always revisit the 3% and decide whether that's still appropriate based on cost of living increases, et cetera. Not that directly relevant to what we're doing here. So I guess I would do better than option 1. One suggestion for everyone's consideration is in both option 1 and option 2, it starts out by saying, as of January 1st, 2025, the commissioner officer per diem is 140, non-officer 125. Since we originally approved this in May 16th of 2024, should that date be as of May 16th, 2024, rather than January 1, 2025? Well, it only applies to 3 people.
Another way to address, I think, what your point is to apply the 3%, change those numbers you just read, 125 times 1.03. In other words, start 2026 having already applied the 3%. Excuse me, start 2025 having already applied the 3%.
Right.
That's not the issue you were raising.
No, I was just wondering if what we're, as it reads, it's suggesting that well, maybe there isn't an issue.
Don't have the automatic 3%. Never raise it, so you take a raise, but you only go into effect when you're reappointed. So the 3% would make it cleaner once everybody's caught up, versus doing it every year. It'd always be some people would get it this year, some people get it next year, some get it the year after.
Yes.
So once you get to your reappointment, we'd be clean again going forward. But we have 2 years to wait or whatever.
Yeah, I have no problem starting the 3% in 2026. That's not what I was trying to get at.
Ezra, go ahead.
All right, thank you, President. I too shifted from favoring option one to favoring option 2 through the course of the conversation here. And it's, it has to do with the fact that every time option 1 would set us up for regular choices on, regular actions on updating this policy. And every time we do that, there's this kind of ugly lag period. Thanks statutes. Thanks for nothing, but it's the way it is. And so by doing option 2 and setting it up automatically, we avoid that awkward and sort of problematic, and on some level problematic lag time for folks until they're reappointed. And I like that. I think it's better. I was worried at first the math might be really, really hard on staff, but I think it's not the way we're talking about it. And so very much in favor of option 2 at this point. Thank you.
Okay. I was back even when we were doing this, I kind of suggested that everything kind of be put on hold for 2 or 3 years so that everybody would start at the same time, and that never got any traction. And I also was wondering about the, doing it on a regular basis. But I too, after joining Greg, Brad, and Ezra, that doesn't make sense to do it every 5 years, because then we're in the same position every 5 years that we're in today, that some are having to wait, and that's not equitable. So, Greg?
I just want to point out for the record, that I don't take a per diem, so this doesn't really affect me, but I think we should.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, 'cause as a city employee. Yeah. Okay. So, Dan?
I'd like to make a motion to
Okay.
accept number 2 with any of the changes talked about.
Okay. Accept, option number 2, and I think Brad kind of withdrew his change.
My original concern was by stating January 1, 2025, that that would have some effect on the increases that occurred for the new appointments in 2024.
Oh. So it should be
And the-
2025, because that was intended, right? Not,
That was the point I was getting at.
Yeah.
The decision in May of 2024 does affect 3 people.
yeah.
And I didn't want whatever we did today to undo that impact.
Right. I think that the question is whether, because we're taking action today, we're essentially overriding the May resolution, and so then we're looking at a start date of January instead of May. And what this resolution does is just amend the action taken to clarify the May 16th action. So from my reading, that's still the trigger point for per diem updates, would be the May 16th action, with the amendment here being just clarification of how the process works.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with the motion on the table, my understanding is 3 commissioners will receive the 3% increase this year, then 3 more will receive it next year. It was and their rate increases as the reappointments, and then the additional 3 in 2 years, whatever those seats.
Sorry, I have to quibble with that. As it's written, there's no 3% increase in 2025.
Well, that's, I think, what Brad was getting to. And that shouldn't there be a 3% increase in 2020? Okay. So right now, there's no 3% increase in 2025, and I thought that was your comment, was that we should be holding to the original resolution, which would have given the increase.
Can I make sure I understand that? My understanding of Commissioner Murphy's comment was that if we are taking new action now, none of the increases in per diem would apply to any commissioner reappointed after May. It wouldn't apply till the next cycle of reappointments. My reading of this is that the per diem increase, the up to 125 and 140, will apply to commissioners reappointed after May, but the 3% won't apply until 2020, until next year. Is that correct, Bill? Okay.
And so, will the 3 people that were appointed this past October, get the 3% in 26?
Yes, and they will get they will be at the 125, 140.
They should be at the 125 rate
now,
this
yes,
year.
Yes,
right?
correct.
So I was thinking that the 3% would be on the 125 and 140 for Brad this year, but it doesn't start till 26. Yep. Everybody clear on that? 3% will start 26 even for those who are appointed in 24. Perfect. Okay. Do we?
I think we need a second. I'm happy to second.
Okay. So was a motion by Commissioner Paul, seconded by Commissioner Meyer, or was it Greg that seconded? No, Commissioner Meyer. Okay, Marcia?
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everyone. I guess it's not a big deal in the scheme of the world, but when I think about a per diem as being compensation and the escalator being part of your compensation package, I just don't get why it wouldn't start, each year there's a new rate because it's 125 plus 3%, and that's built in. So then some future person doesn't start back at 125, right? They start at the escalated position. And I just want to make sure I understand the difference between what I think ought to be, because I think that's more typical of an employee getting a raise than, and I know we're not typical employees, we're a commission and have a statutory power, et cetera, but it just seems a little confusing.
This is Bill Walker again. I agree it is confusing. We experienced this as we were trying to rewrite this policy. But I believe what you described is what will be the case on an ongoing basis. These rates will grow, and anyone who is appointed will receive whatever is the then current higher rate. And the only people for whom that is not true are those who were sitting as of May 2024, and that is a statutory reason. But once those people are reappointed or a new appointment is made to those seats, the ongoing growth will apply to them as well.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? We have a motion by Commissioner Paul, second by Commissioner Meyer to approve option 2. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None, motion carries. Okay. That will take us to the Executive Director's Report. Eric?
Thank you. I'm going to actually turn it over to Amanda Wegner to discuss meet and greet.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Amanda Wegner, Communications and Public Affairs Director. So just very quickly, I did send this email out 2 days ago, and directly to commissioners, but we are having a new executive meet and greet on Tuesday, February 11th, 7:30 to 9. It is a drop-in event, so kind of come as you can. If you can, Eric will speak briefly at about 8:15, and then we will have some breakfasty treats and cupcakes because our 95th anniversary is coming up here in about 10 days. So it's just a chance for stakeholders, partners, owner communities, just kind of come in, meet Eric if they haven't already. And it's just one of many meetings, events, engagements, both individual and larger, that we have planned coming up.
Anything else? Nope. Okay, operations report.
President Hubble, can I
Alan?
chime in real quick? Forgive me,
Yeah, go ahead.
I might be being way too big of a stickler here. Topic 4A, whichever the commission per diem was, on the car, had us adopting a resolution, and there was a resolution furnished to us in there that we could do. We have just taken action on a policy, but we did not adopt a resolution. Do we need to?
Yes, you're correct. There's a resolution that should be adopted.
Sometimes it's good to be a stickler, I guess.
Yeah, no, thanks, Commissioner Meyer. Yeah, I think there should be a new motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll be happy to do that if that helps.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer to adopt the resolution approving option 2.
And the resolution number is 2025-01-30R4.
Yeah, I didn't usually see the resolution. Missed that. Okay.
I'll second it, Murphy.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Murphy. Any further discussion? Thanks, Ezra, for the catch. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay.
What we should go off of is the actual resolution number, which I've just confirmed visually is R4. So whatever I wrote anywhere else is wrong. For those of you online, we are all carefully studying documents right now.
Okay, so the resolution doesn't specifically say the policy, right? So we adopted the policy by the first motion. Now the second motion adopts the resolution. Okay? So it's policy, it's a resolution.
That was my understanding, definitely as the mover there, the motioner.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that catch. I was thinking it was all in Okay, so we're okay with that? Back to you, Alan.
All right. Alan Grooms, Operations Manager for the district. I'll be presenting the December operations report as well as the quarterly metrics update, which is actually the year in review, so to speak. So, next slide, please. No. All right, sorry about that. So plant performance metrics were very good this past month, all of them on the lower end of historical ranges. You can see by the shaded portion of the gray graph, 2.9 on CBDA 5, right down the middle there. Suspended solids down. Ammonia has been up a little bit, attributable a little bit to the colder weather, and a little bit, as I've mentioned, we are occasionally seeing higher nitrogen loadings to the plant. We're in the process of doing what we call liquid processing improvements phase 2, which is going to address, the plant loading aspects upcoming. Some of the signs that we're ready for that kind of upgrade in the project are things like this. Ammonia is usually the last of the treated parameters that fall into range, and so that those little bit higher numbers are a symptom of having a plant that's reaching its capacity, and we are already in the process entering final design for project to address that. So, any specific questions on the December plant performance? Okay. That I'll go to the resource recovery, which, as I mentioned, this is essentially a year in review for 2024. Clean water is what we return to the environment as just that, clean water. Up a little bit from the past 2023, 2022, reflective of we had a wetter year. I think everybody's kind of aware of that. So that we did, our average flows had come up a little closer to what had longer period been our average numbers around 40 million gallons a day. They have here at the end of the year kind of tapered off. They tend to do that in the wintertime, and we've had a fairly dry winter. So, but that's those numbers just reflect that higher flow to the plant. Reused effluent there at the bottom center, that's our what we call W4. That's our chlorinated effluent that we reuse to offset what otherwise would be city water that we would buy for purposes that we don't need potable water for. And biogas production has been on an upward trend the last few years. Last year, didn't actually look up this value. This might actually be an annual record. It's certainly on the high end of normal, but those numbers have continued to go up. And again, those are kind of a side effect of higher plant loading. You've got more loading, you're going to produce more biosolids, you're going to produce more gas as you stabilize those biosolids. So, any questions on this resource recovery slide? Okay. Second resource recovery slide, end of December, biosolid storage, the status was 27.9% full, so pretty good shape. We're still looking to be storage projected to about mid-May, so we're in a decent spot on that. Metro cake, we were unable to make cake earlier in the year due to we had an issue with equipment earlier in the year. We're looking to resume that, but that is why that's such a low value at 209 estimated cubic yards. TrueVite production, we were on a pretty good pace through the year. We still, obviously, it's a 3-year high for us, but that we did not hit our record levels that I at one point speculated we might get to. And then our MetroGrow, this is not what's applied to the field. This is what's actually what we're sending to the storage tanks. Again, those numbers up a little bit, elevated. Again, another kind of side effect of having higher plant loadings in general. So, with that, any questions on this slide or any questions in general for me?
Okay, you don't think we're in issue with the storage for the third fall? Unless we have a really wet spring?
If we had a really wet spring, if we got into mid-May and we haven't applied biosolids by that time, I'll be a little more concerned. Typically, we see a window that late March, early April, we get about a week's worth out, and then typically we're in pretty good shape by 1st of May as far as starting to see regular haul-outs. So there's nothing. We're in a good spot historically speaking. We can't what the spring weather plays
Yeah, I
out.
realize
That's,
it.
yeah.
But I just noticed with our water being at 40 million gallons a day, probably also means more Metro Grow. And so we're producing a little bit more than we have in the past, I would think, in the past couple of years anyway. So that's more going to the tanks than we normally do. So that's,
Yeah, overall, we are sending more to MetroGo. We are producing more. That's really kind of more of a side effect of the loading. So the flows, I don't want to take you too far down inside ball, but.
No, don't worry about it. Okay.
Well, I can, but we can do it offline too, Commissioner Hubble.
Alan,
Yeah.
I had one question for you. I was just thinking about it. Because we knife inject the Metro Grow, right? You can't, even though we don't have snow, you can't really apply once we get frost in the ground, right? Because I know the farmers are applying newer, because I can smell it, as, you know, up near where I live, but it doesn't apply to us, right? We don't have that ability.
Yeah, without looking into the specific, there's difference in the legalities, what you can do with that, but the knife injected is what we do with that, and once the ground freezes hard enough, it's just, we would be creating a large headache for equipment repair and replacement there just to do that, even if we could actually do it, which we probably could, but it wouldn't be, it's not practical.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Vanessa?
Good morning, Vanessa Wishart, Legal Counsel. As far as the legal services update, things have been a little bit quieter because we have, my understanding at least, is largely finished some of the big projects we were working on for the district, including updating the front-end construction contract documents, and a master services agreement as well for the district. We also have been working on some other contract issues, including a potential carbon market contract, and then continued work on Badger Milk Creek litigation. We received the City of Verona's brief in that matter on January 17th, and then ours and the Department of Justice's brief will be due on March 7th. So we'll have more updates for the commission as that continues to progress. I did want to note one other item on the regulatory front. The legislature is back in session, and we have been working with the district on an increase in the Clean Water Fund program. So that's something we're continuing to have conversations with legislators on, and they've been largely very receptive. So we'll keep the district updated on that as well. Happy to take any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Seeing none? Okay. And future meeting schedules in the packet. If anybody's going to be missing a meeting, please let staff know, Cassie, so we can make sure that we have quorums. And it'd also be nice if we know if you're attending virtually or not. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
With the miracle of technology, I got an answer to the question about applying in the winter. According to Marty Griffin, we are actually prohibited from applying on frozen ground. There you go, real-time update.
Okay, so let's see. We don't have to do the Badger Milk Creek, so we'll go into closed session item 6B, convene in closed session in accordance with 19.85 paren 1C of the Wisconsin statutes to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. And this is for the executive director performance review. Do we have a motion?
I would move we go into closed session in accordance with 6B based on what President Huffle just read. Murphy.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Murphy, second by?
Commissioner Freeze, second.
Second by Commissioner Freeze. Cassie, can you do the roll call?
Commissioner Bookland?
Aye.
Commissioner Freeze?
Aye.
Commissioner Havel?
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy?
Aye.
Commissioner Pultz?
Aye.
Commissioner Rummel?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll go to the closed session, and I know Ezra has to leave at 9:30, so, but we will still have a quorum if, everybody else, we just need 5, so, okay.
And those commissioners that are joining us via Zoom should be prompted here in just a moment to join the breakout room.
Hey, Commissioner Rummel, can you hear me? It's Amanda. Oh, now she moved. Yeah, okay.
Cassie's got the, information. That was Murphy and Freeze, right? Right. Okay, we're waiting for Brad, right? There he is. Okay. Okay, we'll reconvene back in open session. We had Commissioner Meyer left the closed session about 9:30. We had a motion by Commissioner Murphy, second by Commissioner Freeze to reconvene in open session. And there was a unanimous vote through roll call that Cassie took. All I have to report is that we discussed the performance review of our our executive director for the first month, and also parameters for future reviews and projects. So that ends our items in closed session. Future agenda topics, that's on in the packet. Any other business? Adjournment? Ken's gone today, so he was taking Tom's spot.
This is Commissioner Freeze. I'll move adjournment.
Commissioner Freeze, motion. Do we have a second?
Murphy, I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Murphy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. It's supposed to be warm out there.
Bye.
Bye.